morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by Texas Electricity Ratings. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. And guys, we are 95 days away from from fall football. I still have spring in my head. But Bobby, you are actually on the road at the SEC meetings. I'm going to let you tell folks about that and what all went down yesterday and what you're expecting today.
Yeah, first of all, 95 days until football. That's Alfred Collins for the new people, and that's Oscar Giles way back in the day for the old ones. Both number 95. Y'all remember Oscar from Palacios? Now college football coach for almost 25, 30 years. Hard to believe how time flies. But yes, I'm down here in Destin, Florida. Sandestin, actually, I guess is the area at the Hilton Hotel. Longhorns have a contingent here alongside the rest of the SEC. Steve Sarkisian, Vic Schaefer, two of the coaches in attendance. I saw them and talked to them briefly last night. Chris Del Conte also in. Drew Martin, one of his deputies here. I spoke to Chris Plonsky, one of the executives in the women's athletic department, a little bit yesterday afternoon as well. So the Longhorns here in force. What was interesting that came out of yesterday's conversation, Blake and Jerry, Greg Sankey stepped to the microphone for an opening presser of sorts, and it was very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I get the sense that the SEC and the Big Ten are being asked to tell the NCAA what they want the future of big-time college sports to be. As Greg Sankey, the commissioner, said yesterday in front of a group of about 30, 40 reporters, we have hard decisions to make. That means roster caps in different sports. Does football go up, down, sideways? What are we literally be looking at roster cuts? He said that as it relates to our roster caps, Sankey said yesterday and admitted yesterday that other leagues have been talking about this, and word leaked back to some of his coaches in the SEC, and the coaches immediately got on the horn with the SEC office, and Sankey said, "Look, we don't have anything yet. It's all out there. We've got to put it on the board, whiteboard it, figure it all out, and go from there." Also up for discussion is the place of NIL collectives in the context of college sports in general. Sankey said, look, we don't know what we even want collectives to be yet. So people saying that they know how collectives are going to be run inside or outside the university or any of that stuff. Look, we have, quote, hard decisions to make about a number of different topics. I get the sense just from being here 24 hours. It comes on the heels of the House settlement with the NCAA that paved the way for college athletes to be paid via NIL, okay, directly by the universities through a revenue share of sorts. Okay, so this is all coming on the heels of that. They don't know these. I mean, we were talking yesterday to one of the most powerful men in college sports, Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC. He literally said multiple times, we have hard decisions to make. Like, they don't know. I'm sitting here trying to report on it for you. It's hard for me to tell you what they're going to do or predict it. He even said, look, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what we're all going to come up with. When I know, I'll tell you. But right now, I really think that they're going to use this meeting this week with the athletic directors. Chris Del Conte will be there. I think they're going to use the input from the coaches. All the coaches get started they have a meeting around 9 o'clock that gets started this morning. I'm headed over there right now. All of that, Jerry, Blake, and everybody else, up in the air right now. And I think it's very, very interesting because the future of college sports is on the line. And walking into this yesterday, what I didn't expect, perhaps, Blake and Jerry, I thought the NCAA and the SEC and Big Ten would work in conjunction. It sounds to me, from what I heard yesterday, that the NCAA has, at least to a degree, abdicated its responsibility to leading major college sports, is going to leave it to these conferences to kind of create a plan that then the NCAA then goes back and looks at, because I think the NCAA's learned it does no good to do a top-down push-down on the elite schools and the elite conferences. And so they're going to ask, Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, is going to ask from input from the bottom up, or actually from the major conferences up. And it is just totally different mindset, in my opinion. I almost asked yesterday, and I may ask today, why not just start all over? Why do you have to stay within the NCAA framework? Because frankly, I could see a situation where the rules being different for college football and perhaps college basketball than every other sport. And if that's the case, why not? And is that on the table for these guys to discuss? I mean, I want to say, I don't want to say it's the Wild West because it's not wild. It's just complex.
Yeah. Hey, Bob,
it's not easy to point everything.
I have two questions for you. Was there any Title IX talk and how that's factoring in yesterday? And two, was there any talk there just amongst people that you talked to? Are we headed to 2 super conferences and that's where we're headed long term? Is that what some of the thought is? What are the thoughts on those 2 areas?
So, Title IX, Greg Sankey was he wasn't dodgy on the question. He wanted to clarify the question. He thinks it's going to be like, he doesn't even know. That's one of the things. How are we going to treat Title IX? Is everybody going to treat Title IX the same? If everybody doesn't treat Title IX the same, then you could have, I don't know, Arizona State with different rules than Utah, than Texas, than, Illinois. It makes them very, very interesting. It makes the whole topic interesting. And he thought that schools that were private might be different than schools that are public. And so there's some tie in there. And as he mentioned, he is a conference full of state flagship universities, typically, with the exception of Vanderbilt. So he represents, of his 16 teams, 15 of them are not are public, big schools, And I will say that. So Title IX, again, he's looking for answers, Jerry.
No.
As far as super conferences, I think that's the based on what I heard yesterday, I feel like the NCAA, it could end up being a puppet organization of the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And be a shield of sorts for those 2 conferences, as well as the ACC and Big 12, to operate and give guidance to, et cetera. But I think that the SEC, Big Ten, there's no doubt. And I will say this. I've been to many Big 12 meetings throughout the years, even going back to the Southwest Conference days. I've been to those. There is a different feel at an SEC meeting when you're looking at Texas was the big dog in every conference. Nebraska is a great program, right, or a great university and proud tradition, all that stuff. Well, there was 1 or 2 Nebraska and Oklahoma in a conference with Texas at a time. Now you look across, it's Alabama, it's Georgia, it's Florida, it's Tennessee, it's Kentucky and basketball. LSU, it is a different feel at these media events and spring meetings. Welcome to a conference where, it's pretty interesting to me. It really is. It's a different feel for the University of Texas, having covered these things before.
Hey, Bobby, I guess if my question is with that is any other talks on expansion? When that would come from the SEC? I don't know if there's any water cooler talk there in Destin about that.
Not yet. Now, I will say that there was an article out the other day that North Carolina might prefer the Big Ten.
Huh?
Okay. If that's the case, that's interesting because Maryland's in the Big Ten. North Carolina and Virginia go to the Big Ten, then the SEC could pick up, Miami and Florida State.
Yeah.
Maybe Clemson. I don't know. don't know the answer, but I think, Jerry, based on what I'm hearing right now, there is very little focus on expansion and a hell of a lot of focus on how are we going to manage college football.
Yeah.
Because there is 22% of revenue getting ready to go out the door that Chris Del Conte is going to have to find somewhere in his budget. Okay. 22% of revenue. That's a lot. Okay. And Texas has to figure that out right now.
Yeah. Any word on divisions in the SEC from anybody yesterday?
Nothing. Guys, when I tell you that almost every single question was laser focused on how the new world order is of college football, almost every single one. They got into a small discussion about baseball. There's 11 teams in the super regionals for the SEC, not including and that doesn't include Texas and Oklahoma, which would make it 13.
Wow.
So there's that to consider. The other piece to consider that they talked a little bit about is they're going to announce some game times this week. So you may see the third game of the year for Texas, that game time come out. Also, Sankey told the crowd that he's going to look at potentially naming a few times of marquee matchups later in the year. Hey, real quick, I got to answer this. Zane Petty, he's always with us on the show. Sankey said a lot of nothing. There's some truth in that, but I think the fact is he usually says things of substance. I don't think my take on that is, Zane, he doesn't know what it's going to look like yet. It's not that he said nothing. It's that he has nothing to say yet because he doesn't know what his constituency is even going to agree to, because they're coming together this week on the heels of this House settlement. I'm telling you, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of different ideas that are going to be brought to the table. And I don't think they're going to get through all of it this week, by the way. But maybe they start looking and coalescing around an idea or two.
Oh, didn't mean to bring that up there. Sorry about that. All right, Bobby, are you staying with us for a few
No, I gotta get going. The first thing starts at 8:30, man. Hey, hey, by the way, everybody in Dallas and East Texas, I got a call from a friend this morning. Y'all be very, very safe out there. I know the weather is just absolutely horrible, but y'all take care of yourselves and be very safe. Hook 'em, guys. I'll have more from Steve Sarkisian today, by the way. Probably talk to Chris Del Conte as well. We'll have that and more here on Texas Football, as well as on TexasFootball.com.
All right. Thank you, Bobby. Have a good one.
Hook 'em.
All right, Jerry. Let me even us out there.
There we go. Let's do this.
Okay. Well, before we move on, are you ready to tell folks out there about Texas electricity ratings?
Yes, I sure am, man. For those of y'all still living in Texas and in major cities with deregulated electricity like Dallas and Houston, you understand that the deregulated electricity market can be confusing. Texas Electricity Ratings is a shopping website that lets you compare prices, read customer reviews, and find a good electricity that fits all your needs. It also filters out a lot of gimmicky plans on websites like Power to Choose that trick customers into expensive bills. So if you're in the market for a new electricity plan, shop TexasElectricityRatings.com/OTF for all your electricity needs, and hook 'em.
All right, we want to thank them for sponsoring each and every Tuesday right here on Texas Football. And let's get into it. Jerry, we got a lot to talk about, even though Bobby left us. Let's start with recruiting. A lot of moving parts there, including an announcement tomorrow.
Yes.
Certain running back. So
yeah, tomorrow around noon 30 in that area code. You know, these announcements never go right on time. James Simon, the 2025 running back out of Calvary Baptist in Shreveport, will announce his decision. And that in Texas is considered the favorite over Notre Dame and Texas A&M and has been for a while. There you see James Simon, about 1,700 yards rushing for a state championship Calvary Baptist team there. Calvary Baptist, for those that aren't familiar, that's kind of the team school that broke away from Shreveport Evangel years ago when Shreveport Evangel went through their changes with that longtime coaching staff. So that's when Calvary Baptist started getting more players and has been good for a long time. But James Simon, really good. You see some of that. You see some of that ability. He's got the jump cut and the skip cut. He's really good runner in between the tackles. Seeing him in person at last year's elite camp where he first kind of got on Texas radar. And then at the spring game this year, watching his body mature. He's going to be a 6 foot, 215, 220-pound back that really excels between the tackles. He's got cutback vision, got really good hands. Of course, he has a really good feel for the running back position, as he should. His father was a really good running back at Louisiana Tech, briefly in the NFL, and has coached in high school and college ranks for now 15-plus years. He's coached in college the last decade plus. His father was once the athletic director at Dallas Roosevelt High School, so some ties there. He's got ties to Tashard Choice. So there's that relationship. And look, this again, if James Simon picks Texas tomorrow, as many expect, as we expect, over Notre Dame and A&M, that's another feather in Tashard Choice's cap, because that means the father of James Simon, who is a big-time running back at the college level and coaches college football, said, you know what, Tashard Choice is a great place for you to go continue your development. Now, running back and linebacker are the most instinctive positions in football, in my opinion, but there is still development that comes with that. So there you see a little bit of James Simon's hands. Didn't break stride, caught that ball right at his waist, didn't break stride. He's a lean forward, fall forward guy on contact too. He's not going to have 80-yard runs at the next level, right? But what he's going to do is he's going to be a run maximizer up to about 20, 25 yards, whether that's with the feet in the hole, whether that's the backside vision, whether that's that feel for when to drop his pads and lean forward right there to finish runs. Really good prospect, 4-star prospect, just natural catching the football. That's the other thing. And you know how important that is in Steve Sarkisian's offense. So, look, that would make, if Simon goes to Texas tomorrow, that would mean Tashard Choice is 6 of 7 on guys in the recruiting in his 3 cycles at Texas. Ricky Stewart in this cycle, Jordan Davison, the first guy he really lost out on. Then there's James Simon, right? If he wins that one, the previous 2 years, he got Jarrett Gibson, got Christian Clark as top 2 guys. Previous year to that, he took Trey Wisner early, then obviously came back and got Cedric Baxter, 5-star out of Florida. So again, the profile of Tashard Choice continues to rise. And you know, the other thing with James Simon, I would say I-20 in Louisiana. One, it would be another Louisiana prospect for Texas, and it's I-20. Texas is also recruiting Aiden Anding, the corner who they love out of Ruston up on I-20. And I think I-20 in Louisiana is always going to be more of a spot you can grab top talent, 4-star talents out of Louisiana versus putting everything in the basket, all the eggs in the basket of I-10 from Baton Rouge to New Orleans and those areas, especially with Corey Raymond, Frank Wilson at LSU right now. That it's a little tougher game with Corey Raymond coming back. So I think that I-20 corridor in Louisiana, that's an area that Nick Saban had a lot of success at Alabama. Gary Patterson had success on more of the underrated guys that end up being really good players. You know, there's been a lot of schools that have had success on that in that I-20 area. And that's, you know, West Monroe is still LSU school. Neville, majority of those guys go to LSU, but you can still win some of those recruitments, Ruston High, Ouachita Baptist, all those areas over the years. So a lot of talent in I-20. And we'll see what James Simon does tomorrow around noon. Texas is considered the favorite over Notre Dame and Texas A&M. So we'll see what happens there. Somebody's asking about, we're going to do a little recruiting speed dating right now too, right, Blake, as I call it. Okay.
Yeah, we need to do that. You got a lot of questions about Simon. So I'll throw them up there rapid fire.
Let's do it.
Simon and Stewart, the running backs for this class.
Yeah, if Simon commits, Texas has done it in 2025 at running back. Ricky Stewart, obviously, Tyler Chapel Hill already committed. Texas already has Racine Guillory in 26 committed. Now you have to fight to keep him. He's going to continue to visit places. He went to Georgia in the spring. He's going to be at other places, but he's committed to Texas. And then the question is, with the elite camp June 1st here coming up, Tredarian Ball, some of those other running backs in 26 are going to be on campus. Javian Osborne is not. He'll be at Tennessee. But will it be a 2 running back class in 26? It sure looks like it will be once again. And the question there is, will Texas take 2 running backs from inside the state of Texas in 26? I think it's looking that way because it's such a great running back year in 26. So we'll see. But yeah, if Simon commits, Texas is done at running back. I need to think of a comp, BB, on that. Again, give me a little time to think about that one. Think about that one a little bit, and I'll put something together there.
Level of competition that Simon plays. What do you think, Jerry?
Yeah, I think they're playing at the 3A level in Louisiana. They play good competition. I mean, they play against physical, blue-collar athletes, kids that can run. So they're playing a good level of competition. Are they playing the top level of competition in Louisiana? They are not, but they're playing a good level of competition in Louisiana. It's physical league, physical football.
The modern-day running back had a couple of questions about him. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jordan Davison. I think, look, Ohio State just a better situation with Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins headed off to the NFL after this year. I think that kind of opened up the door there. And Tashard Choice they were eventually going to lose out on somebody. And I think Jordan Davison sees just, a little more. And that doesn't mean he's running from competition. That's not what this is. Some guys look for opportunity. It doesn't mean they're not competitors because Jordan Davis certainly is a competitor. But with 2 guys likely headed to the NFL from Ohio State this year, that can be inviting for a running back. So I think that is pretty much what happened with Jordan Davison in Texas.
And then, Jerry, we're going to jump over to the Coleman brothers. We talked about them kind of in depth yesterday, but Nate Russ says, are they triplets or twins and a brother? Which I guess technically still triplets.
They're triplets. They're triplets, and Isaiah Coleman jokingly said the first triplet's always the smallest. He's 6'2", 275. And then Devin is 6'4", 315, and Jordan is 6'5" and change and 355-ish. So, yes, they are triplets. In my 20-plus years in the business, first triplets that are legitimate Division I football players with offers that I've covered. That's the one. I didn't – if you would have said, all right, tell me one thing you probably won't cover, I would have probably put that are that level at talents, triplets. But then there you go, a first.
And then Jerry, with Mills and Coleman brothers being 3 stars, says Juju Juice, is offensive line recruiting hurting?
I think so. Here's my thing. I don't think those guys are 3-star guys to me, and that's not being a homerish or anything. I just disagree. John Mills, a 4-star prospect. I mean, give me a break on his rankings. People just haven't seen him. Jordan Coleman, Devin Coleman. Look, I mean, Texas and OU. Kyle Flood and Biedenbaugh wanted those guys. They turned down visits to Tennessee and Ole Miss. So, I mean, is Texas OL recruiting hurting? No, I think Texas OL is going to have a tremendous class. I think the one thing to remember about these recruiting rankings too is your big guys tend to adjust later in rankings. Your skill guys pop on earlier onto the radar. Those guys are ranked highly early on. You have the most movement in prospect rankings on the OL and DL from late junior into senior season. So watch for some of those guys. Those rankings will change a little bit. And look, I don't know what to tell people if anybody thinks John Mills is a 3-star recruit. I legitimately, I don't know what to say.
Yeah. And then we'll do one more rapid fire real quick, and you got to throw them a bone here, Jerry. Champ Bailey 3, considering the Coleman brothers account for 3 highs, is there still 4 to 5 highs left out there, or did that list shrink?
They accounted for 2. Isaiah's a PWO, so that accounted for 2. So you got 2-3 guys out there.
Okay, all right.
Well, and by the way, and I'm going to rapid fire a couple more of these, okay?
Yeah, take them.
Did Myron Charles ever schedule an official visit to Texas? Yes. Myron Charles is at Florida this weekend. This is the 4-star D lineman out of Port Charlotte. I was at Port Charlotte a couple of weeks ago. There's a good interview up on Texas football on the YouTube channel if you haven't seen it. He goes to Florida this weekend. He goes to Miami the 7th through 9th, Texas the 14th through 16th, and Florida State the 21st through 23rd. I think FSU and Texas are the top 2. Florida State's been considered the leader for a while, headed in the official visits. But I'll say this again, the official visits will decide the recruitment like so many are. I wanted to throw this one out, by the way. Anybody that's in Orange Beach in that area, if you have a chance, go to Floribama. I went to Floribama last September, 2 weeks after Texas beat Bama. Now, it was football season, but even if you go to watch SEC regional baseball or something, that's a fun place to go. We have a super chat here from Henry James. Not a question. He's just bragging, just letting you know it's 55 degrees in Santa Barbara right now. That's good because it felt like 92 at 6:48 in Houston this morning. So, and then this one, we're going to finish the speed dating. Keyshawn Henderson, the Houston Wow. They're all on him playing quarterback at next level. Yeah, we'll see if that recruitment holds. I'll be surprised. There's Ruben Flores. If we're able to get Nick Townsend and Michael Terry in the same class, what position would you personally like to see Terry play? I think that's a great question. Obviously, Nick Townsend, the tight end, defensive end who wants to be a tight end, is being recruited as a tight end out of Decaney High, one of the best pound-for-pound athletes in the country in the 25 class, as is Michael Terry. State of Texas has some really talented big athletes in this class. Michael Terry, for me, it's an interesting – I don't see wide receiver. I see him more of an outside edge linebacker using that athleticism, speed, and length. People just call him a linebacker. I think that's hard. He hasn't played it. It's instinctive. It's a hard thing to do. Just throw somebody at linebacker and say he's a linebacker. I've seen that work less times than a lot of projections over the years in the business. Michael Terry to me is interesting because could he be Amari Niblack? I think that's kind of your point. I'm not sure I don't like him there long term. I don't think safety. He's 218 pounds as a junior in high school, and he's a multi-sport guy. He's going to be 230 plus. It's going to be very difficult to keep his weight down. So we'll see what happens. I kind of liken him to a Amari Niblack level athlete with a ball in hand at the next level, but that doesn't mean I'm right. He could be an edge guy too. Ekim, morning from Rockford. What's the recruiting board for safeties in 2025? I think Cade Phillips is the top of that list. I think Texas they're still making a run at Jonah Williams. I'm not sure that happens. Will the official visit? Yeah, last time I talked to the family, I think they're looking at a June official visit. So it won't shock me if something doesn't come out there. I think safety depth-wise in this class is a question. I think Cade Phillips as a corner nickel safety guy, he's on the top of the board as the most likely safety. Then there are a bunch of corners that could factor in at nickel: Aiden Anding, Caleb Chester, Dorian Brew, obviously at corner. And Texas has Devin Williams at corner coming in. Oh, by the way, one basketball, Cody Pack, Trevon Brazile, Arkansas transfer. I don't see that one happening. That would shock me.
Hey, I'm going to give you one more basketball here from aggressively optimistic Texas fan. Anything to report on the portal when it comes to basketball with 2 spots left to fill for the roster?
Yeah, I think they'll only fill one. If as of right now, with a probably grad transfer, big man, but it's got to be a role player. The UCLA kid, I don't know if he's committed anywhere. I was on the road over the weekend. The kid from Turkey, Texas still mess around there, but that comes down to what do you see your role as being. If you want to be a 25, 27 minute per game player, that probably wouldn't be at Texas. I think there's a couple of grad transfers that aren't public yet that will be public soon that are going to factor in.
And Chad here says, we'll be at Floribama tonight. You were telling him to check that out.
There you go. That's look, you're in there in the SEC. You got to go to Floribama when you're down there. They have like 2 or 3 different live bands all the time. I was there for a college football Saturday in September, and I had an absolute blast. I mean, it was so much fun. There are Alabama fans chirping at LSU fans and Mississippi State fans and Ole Miss. It's a nice fun back and forth while you're watching college football. And by the way, Texas will be hated in there, so that makes it even more fun for you.
Okay, well, a lot of other stuff going on in recruiting, Jerry. I know you've had some stuff up about 2026 QBs over on ontexasfootball.com. So let's talk about that for a moment, and let's start with Diabell.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. June 1st coming up here really quickly, guys. Diabell, quarterback from American Heritage, son of Rajah Bell. Here you're looking at sophomore highlights of him. Yes, every receiver he throws to is a D1 guy. That kid right there that just caught that is Zamari Sanders, who ran 20.5 flat in the 200 as a sophomore. And he's throwing to a Miami commitment and another 2026 with about 15 offers. So, yeah, American Heritage, they ran 39.39 in the 4x1 at the state track meet in the last couple of weeks. So they have Texas, they have Duncanville, Tascasita speed at wide receiver at American Heritage. Diabell, though, AJ Milwee went and watched him throw on the 20th. That was the last time they were going to watch him in the practice setting. Now he and Troy Hune from San Marcos Mission Hills will be at Texas June 1st. And I really think that day is going to that's going to tell the story. Even if Sark may have a inkling going in who he likes, maybe one or over the other a little bit, I think how these guys perform, those conversations with Sarkisian and Milwee, the family conversations, how they interact with other top prospects there. I know that's Sark really liked that about KJ Lacey last year at the elite camp. Diabell's got a really good skill set for college football. Bobby Burton actually threw one out there, Shadur Sanders for him. A little bit more athletic version of Shadur Sanders. That's not a bad comparison at all. And for people to say, oh, no, Shadur Sanders. Well, Shadur Sanders is going to be a draft pick and a pretty good player. So Diabell, great kid. I had a long interview on Texas football with him. You guys can go back in the archives and find. But these guys will be arriving Friday with their families. Yep, quick release, very athletic. I'm a big fan of Diabell. The interesting thing with him is he actually played, if your middle school campus and high school campus are on the same campus, technically on the same campus, you can play varsity as a middle schooler in the state of Florida. And I think that's the same in Texas. There's been a few. So Diabell appeared in 4 games as an 8th grader for American Heritage, one of the best programs in the state of Florida. Then he appeared in 9 games as a freshman. Last year was his first year starting. But him and Troy Hume, both first-year starters in varsity football. Diabell had a little more varsity experience, but there you see his athleticism. It's going to be interesting to see which way Texas goes on this one on June 1st. And I do expect Texas to have their 2026 quarterback committed in early to mid-June.
Very interesting. A good note there for sure. All right, excuse me there. Hey, we got a super chat we need to read real quick. Jerry from UT Boy. Thank you, UT Boy, as always. He says, Jerry Hamilton next year is loaded in state. However, Texas is going to land serious talent this year as well. Dakorien Moore, Kelshawn Johnson. Jonte better keep grinding. Grown folks are on the way.
Yeah, look, I mean, the 2025 receivers that Texas has coming in for official visits are extremely high-end group, right? Texas is going to put 3 or 4 I know Ski Breck doesn't like it when I say it. Texas is going to put 3 or 4 really, really high-end guys on the board in this class. Obviously, you guys know what I think of Dakorien Moore. I thought he was the best receiver in the state of Texas last year, period. Didn't matter what class any guys were in. I thought he was the best, and I still do. I'm not even sure it was close, honestly, seeing more of him now than ever. But then, look, you have Jamie French out of Jacksonville Mandarin. Texas has recruited well in Orlando. They've got into IMG. They're doing well in that Southwest corridor. The areas that I think Texas can year in, year out be successful. They're reaching into the Space Coast. They have Brandon Brown committed. Texas hadn't had success in Jacksonville. And Jamie French is one of the top receivers in the country. I think Texas has a legit shot at him. Then you have Kalik Lockett coming in on 21st from Saxe High there, and Garland ISD. Again, Texas, LSU, Texas A&M. I mean, you name it, those schools are in it. For him. Then you have Kelshawn Johnson, the speedster out of Hitchcock, who I think could run 10-3 if he ever trained for track. I think he's that level athlete, but he's also quick and shifty. And then you have some other guys, peripheral, Marcus Harris from Mater Dei coming in, obviously. But, I mean, if those 5 guys I just named right there, those first 4 I named, if you got 3 of those guys, you're walking away and you're all giving each other high fives. I mean, that'd be a hell of a class at wide receiver.
For sure. Longhorn Football Edit says French got through his Tennessee visit without committing to them. Good news for us.
Yeah, I don't think that was going to happen. I do think Tennessee and Texas may be where this ultimately comes down to. And I don't want to rule out Miami totally. I know Jamie French. He told me the same thing he's told other people. Texas and LSU were the top 2. Texas probably the favorite there in May. But I keep hearing Texas, Tennessee, maybe where this comes down to at the end of the day. And again, I don't want to throw Miami out of it. I mean, they're powerful in the NIL game, especially in state, right? But that continues to be what I hear. So it wouldn't be surprised if that's an orange-on-orange battle at the end of the day.
Before we move on, Jerry, I need to tell folks out there about one of our newest sponsors with a very tasty product. And guys, with Father's Day right around the corner, what do you give to the man that has everything? It's easy. You give him an experience he's never going to forget. You give him Omaha Steaks. The Father's Day experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to put a smile on the big guy's face this summer with hand-selected gift packages starting at just $89. Just go to omahasteaks.com and use promo code ONTexas at checkout, and they're going to give you an additional discount when you shop gourmet gift packages for Father's Day. With Omaha Steaks, the possibilities are endless. Endless flavor, endless variety, and endless value. Truly, they have perfected more than steak, and your dad is guaranteed to love every bite. Just go to omahasteaks.com, use promo code ONTexas to get that exclusive savings, and shop for unforgettable gifts that are guaranteed to make your dad's Father's Day the best one yet. Because if there's one thing that Omaha Steaks knows, it's that dads want steak. That's omahasteaks.com using promo code ONTexas at checkout, and you're going to save on exclusive packages starting at just $89. And Jerry and I, Bobby, can all tell you,
oh yeah,
they're phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Had the chicken last night. It was tremendous. Saving the steaks for tonight, which will be even better. By the way, so that's correct on Jamie French. That was unofficial. His official visit process starts this weekend. He's at LSU. Then he goes to Miami the 7th through 9th, Tennessee 14th through 16th, Texas 21st through 23rd. But look, Tennessee gets 2 visits. That's kind of what I was getting at here. Texas and Tennessee, I think, is where this is ultimately going to come down to for Jamie French if he continues on this timeline and makes that decision in July or August before his senior year, which I think he will.
One of the other things that we need to talk about, and we still have a lot more, plus all these questions to get to, Jerry. But yesterday in baseball, the regionals were announced. Texas, a number 3 seed in there in the College Station regional, with Texas A&M obviously being number 1. Louisiana 2, Texas, as I said, 3, and then Grambling 4. Longhorns, how will baseball fare in the Aggie Land tournament? Your guess is as good as mine. My guess, though, probably not too well. I would be shocked. I'll just go ahead and say it if Texas ends up in a super regional. But hey, you never know what's going to happen. We've seen the bats get hot. Of course, you got to have the pitching to go along with it, but that's a whole other story. So I don't know, Longhorns. We'll have to see. And then one other thing, Jerry, is softball as well. They will the Women's College World Series that's going to start on Thursday. Texas will be playing Stanford, that game taking place at 7 p.m. So best luck to them. Trying to get one of the girls to come on with us this week before the big game. We'll see if they allow that to happen. But it would be awesome if so and get a little softball update.
By the way, the big thing there is Texas's side of the softball World Series, kind of the Chalks won in the super regionals, right? Texas is playing 8-seed Stanford. Then it's 4-seed Oklahoma State, 5-seed Florida. On the other bracket, Oklahoma, who they haven't lost in 3 years, and it's in the NCAA tournament, which is a wild number, 18 straight games, I think that is. They got 10-seed Duke, right? And then there's another upset on their side of the bracket. So does Oklahoma have the easier path to the championship? It sure seems like that right now. But at this level, you still got to go out and win the games, right? But the main thing I was going to continue to say for those that haven't seen the bracket, if Texas handles business, and you hope A&M kind of was the one that really pushed them, not that Florida's not really good or Oklahoma State, but Texas and OU wouldn't meet unless it's for the national championship, which would be unbelievable if that happened. By the way, yes, I think A&M will get their revenge from last week in softball this week in baseball.
Yes, for sure. Hey, one other thing we need to talk about before we get to questions, Jerry, is they've updated. Now, when I say updated, I mean barely updated the SEC championship odds. I believe Georgia about a month ago was 180. Texas, I think, was either 300 or 315. So it's a slight shift, but a shift nonetheless. Georgia obviously still the favorite. Texas number 2, followed by Ole Miss, Alabama, and LSU to round out the top 5. But look at Oklahoma all the way down there, plus 4,000. What do you think?
Yeah. Look, I think I'll agree with the top 2. I actually agree with the top 3. Ole Miss just got another edge player out of the portal. I mean, their portal class is ridiculous now. All those kids have to come together for the same goal because they mixed a lot of portal guys in. So they got to make that thing work, which I think is easier said than done. It's easier to look at it on paper and just say, Ole Miss maybe even better than Texas and challenge Georgia. They may be, but when you bring in that many guys, you got to put that thing together and make it work. I mean, are all these guys on the same page? Are they playing for Ole Miss or are they playing for themselves this year? That's the question. That has to be answered when you bring in that many guys from the portal. I like that Ole Miss is ahead of Alabama. I mean, I think Alabama could have some issues at center. James Brockermeyer out, Parker Brailsford wasn't available this spring. Let's see what happens there at Alabama. I like that Alabama's ahead of LSU, though. I do agree with that. Tennessee. Somebody asked about Nico earlier in Heupel's quarterback. Look, it'll be interesting on Nico. They're going to play on half the field in that scheme. So that's going to be interesting to see how teams defend him and how does that hurt his development long term in that offense. We'll see. Missouri, I almost like Missouri over Tennessee. I think Missouri has a tougher schedule probably, but I think Missouri quarterback, receivers. Now, what are they going to have on defense? They lost some guys on defense. They have to replace those. A&M at 2,000, they've done a good job in the portal. They're going to be really good on defense. You know that, so they're going to be in every game. I think offensive line is going to be the key there. Oklahoma, breaking in a new quarterback with an entire new offensive line. Now, I think they have really good wideouts. I don't think they have a dude at running back. I think they got good players. But, offensive line, first-year quarterback, they let Dylan Gabriel walk so that Jackson Arnold didn't hit the portal. So they kind of went with the youth movement there at quarterback, so they didn't lose a 5-star from Texas to the portal. So going into the SEC in year one with a new offensive line doesn't mean they're not going to be talented. Biedenbach can coach them up, but 5 new guys plus new quarterback, it's a tall order, and they have a tough schedule. Tougher schedule than Texas has, in my estimation.
Hey, here's an interesting question from Mike G. Before we get back to football talk. If you had to pick one player as being more important to their team, would it be Reese Atwood, obviously softball, Maddie Skinner, volleyball, or Madison Booker, basketball?
Based on, let's see what Reese Atwood does in the College World Series. Madison Booker was a freshman last year, so I'm taking her out of it. Madison Skinner was off the charts in the NCAA tournament last year. I mean, she was off the charts. I mean, her play from the back line, it was off the charts for Texas volleyball last year in that run to a national championship. I go with Madison Skinner unless Reese Atwood goes Pete Incaviglia in the softball World Series.
And Reese is only a sophomore. I think I said it over on ontextfootball.com this weekend. I think she has a chance to leave the 40 acres as the best softball player ever. And that's saying something considering who's at the top right now, Kat Osterman. So We'll see what happens. All right, Jerry. Well, we got plenty of questions, so let's just dive right into them here. And let's start with this one because I've seen it asked a couple of times. Dorian Peru, what you got?
Official visit June 7th through 9th. So there's been some reporting it's the 14th through 16th. I asked somebody in the family late last week. They said, nope, 7th through 9th official visit. The talk is how much is Ohio State slid there with all the other defensive backs committed. I think Texas has a legit shot at Dorian Brew. I think that's where I'd go with it right now. Obviously, he'll visit LSU. His father's, I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame. He should be in the Hall of Fame. He's considered a Hall of Famer if he's not at LSU. Obviously, mom has all the ties to Ohio State. But I could see this coming down to Texas and LSU if Ohio State has really slipped as much as we hear behind the scenes. I could see this coming down to Texas and LSU. Corey Raymond is making a run at these guys in state. Same with Cade Phillips over at Hightower. Corey Raymond's going to be a factor in these recruitments. And if Ohio State slipped for Brew, I could see it coming down to Texas and LSU. I think Texas has a legit shot.
And Ekim says, is Texas out on Tyler Thomas with the 3 offensive lineman commits?
I think it's a tougher climb there with Texas and Tyler Thomas because I think John Mills is a lean to Texas as well. Now, John Mills visits Washington this weekend. He's already visited Nebraska and Cal. I don't think those are where he ends up. It's always been Texas and Washington top 2. And when Michigan, before Harbaugh left, it was Michigan as the top 3 and Michigan was 3rd. It's been Washington and Texas. He's at Washington officially this weekend. Then he goes to Florida, and then he goes to Texas the 14th through 16th. I think Texas leads for John Mills. I think he's one kid that doesn't care how many guys you have committed in the class. He's just going to go where he wants to go. He's that level. of competitor, and just he's just different. He's built a little different, wired a little different like that, I think, than some kids are. So I think that may be the last right tackle or swing guy in the class. But I could be proven wrong. But I think with the Colemans, Jordan and Devin coming into the class, then that makes it a little tougher with Jackson Christian as well.
And while we're on the subject of offensive line, kind of along the lines of what you're talking about, Texas seems like we're done with the interior offensive line recruiting. Maybe one more swing guy. Seems like a couple of tackles remain, says Casey.
Yeah, I think a swing guy like John Mills, I'll be surprised if he's not in the class. Recruiting does surprise you sometimes. And then it comes down to, for me, Michael Fasusi, Nick Brooks, and Lamont Rogers. Fasusi visits 21st through 23rd. Texas gets the final visit. He's got Missouri, A&M, and Oklahoma coming up before Texas. I think the June officials will decide that recruitment. I think he stays in state ultimately and goes to Texas or Texas A&M, but I don't want to say Oklahoma's not in it. They're certainly in it. But I do think right now, having been up there last week, I think in-state may win out there at the end. And A&M has to have a tremendous offensive line class this year, and they know it. They're where Texas was in 2022. They have to have a tremendous offensive line class moving forward in the SEC. They have to rebuild that offensive line, not just from front line, but talented depth as well. So I think Texas may be a slight favorite head in the visits, but I think anything can happen there. Nick Brooks visits Georgia this weekend. That's the big one. If you're watching Nick Brooks, he goes to USC the 7th through 9th, Texas 14th through 16th. And then he has Iowa the 21st through 23rd. He's not, as of right now, Iowa's not expected to be the pick. It's everything I'm hearing is Georgia or Texas for Nick Brooks. Can it change? Yeah, it's recruiting. But if Juan Gaston from Westlake commits to Georgia soon, what does that do with Nick Brooks in Georgia? We'll see. That doesn't mean Georgia can't get both, but we'll see what happens there. And then Lamont Rogers, kind of a wild card. In Dallas last week, some people said, watch out for Missouri with Lamont Rogers. So I put that one in the back of my mind. You have Texas on the 14th through 16th. You have Texas A&M. LSU also could still be in that picture. He's a kid he lives with his mom in the Mesquite area. His father still lives in Mississippi, family originally from Mississippi, but I don't think it's leaning that way. They could just be in the picture still at LSU, kind of the in-between. But watch out for Missouri with Lamont Rogers, I hear.
All right, Jerry, we talk about being surprised in recruiting. Dave wants to know which in-state prospects are you surprised Texas hasn't pursued or pushed for more?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I need to look at that a little bit. I think the interesting thing for me is when Aiden Anding burst onto the scene at Ruston, with the corner nickel, that Texas really pushed him ahead of some other guys in state at defensive back. So that one maybe, he might have pushed a couple of guys down as far as corner prospects. So that one may be one. Did Texas push hard all the way at the end for Kobe Sellers? I think Kobe Sellers, if he wanted to commit to Texas would have taken his commitment. I'm not sure they were absolutely all in there. I think they really like Aiden Anding, so maybe you go that direction when an out-of-state guy pops up at defensive back that Texas may like a little bit more than some of the in-state guys because there's some talented in-state guys.
And then Colin wants to know.
So I want to bring this one up.
Oh, go ahead.
Dylan Battle, look, Texas went through and took a look at him in January, went back in May. He was out this spring, from what I was told. I didn't get to go by there last week with a little bit of a shoulder injury. So it'll be questioned, how much did that ding his recruitment a little bit in May. His father lives in Michigan. Before the coaching change, I know Michigan was up there. I think LSU is very much in that one. And Oklahoma's been in that a little bit, but we'll see if that shoulder injury affects him at all.
All right. We've actually had a couple of questions regarding Wynn. Zane Petty says, any update on Wynn coming into the visits? I love his film.
I love Kevin Wynn as well. Loved him in person. Man, you'd like him even more when you talk to him. You saw some of that interview on Texas Football I did with him at the sectional track meet. Was that 3 weeks ago now? 6'2" and without shoes on, 315 in person, barrel-chested kid to over 10-inch hands, long arms for 6'2". He's got the mindset, the makeup that you really like. I think Florida State's been the favorite there. South Carolina's making a run. Culinary is very big with him, by the way. I mean, that's legitimately a big thing with him. He wants to be a chef whenever he's done playing football. I think Florida State and South Carolina did a very good job early on in the recruitment with that. Georgia may look. He's a tremendous player. He's a 4-star prospect, one of the best D linemen in the country. But Georgia's so loaded in the state, and Georgia also recruits nationally. I think Georgia, not hot and cold on him as a prospect, but maybe showed love to some other guys at times earlier on in the process. But one thing I'm watching with Kevin Wynn now, he's 40 minutes from Athens. And Kirby doesn't like the Texas thing. They didn't like that with Daniel Calhoun. It's not that Georgia cares if Texas gets somebody from the state of Georgia. Georgia's not going to keep Texas from recruiting the state and getting guys. But OLs and DLs in the Atlanta area, in the Athens area, that's a little different story. So I think Georgia's going to try to make a big push for Kevin Wynn. He visits this weekend. We'll see. Somebody continues to tell me, I don't know about that. I'm not going to rule it out. We'll see. But I think Florida State going into the June visits, probably in the best position with South Carolina. He's never been on campus at Texas. So the official visit's going to be everything for Kevin Wynn and his family. And I think he's going to like Texas. I think he's going to like the program. I think he's going to like the culture. I think he's going to he liked Kenny Baker on the first meeting. He said he was very genuine. He knew where he stood with Kenny Baker. I think that was important to him. And maybe if Georgia doesn't get him, that could be a reason why. So we'll see. I think the official visit's everything in this recruitment for Texas because he's never been on campus before.
And talking about official visits, Dave H says, I have a couple of official visit questions. Is there any concern with Texas not getting the last official visit with Dakorien Moore, 5-star wide receiver? Also, how come we haven't gotten an official visit scheduled with Jonah Williams yet?
Yeah, Jonah could have something scheduled and it's not released. I talked to somebody a week and a half ago and they're like, it's going to happen. But again, nothing's been released on that. So we'll see on Jonah Williams. I still think that's a long shot with Texas. Dakorien, I'm not concerned about that. I know some people will be. I'm not concerned about that. I think Texas enters the official visits in a good spot. We'll see. I want to bring this one up. Javion Hilson from Cocoa, he's scheduled to come in the 7th through 9th. We'll see. I mean, he's never been on campus before. Total wild card. I like Javion Hilson. I'm not sure I like him as much as the rankings suggest nationally. I think he's a good player. But I think right now I'd be surprised if he's in the class. But again, it's kind of like Kevin Wynn. You just don't know. These are total wild cards. You're getting them on campus. You're going to see what happens. Texas was by Coco in May to see him and Boggs, the receiver that they kind of gave a non-committable offer to in March.
AJJ Sports, is there any instance where Texas grabs 2 quarterbacks in a class?
I just don't think that's the way Texas wants to go. Subject to change, right? I mean, if you thought something would happen to and I hate to even say it, quarterback transfers or something like that, but I think as of right now, the plan is one. I think the key is this: if Texas ever says, "Oh, we're going to take 2 quarterbacks in the class," I think they do that knowing the 2 highly rated guys they're recruiting, both of them wouldn't come in the same class. So kind of to me, the way I think to think about that.
And then Colin McPherson wants you to call your shot here. Jerry, how many of the 3 5-star wide receivers will we land? Hook them.
2.
Not a bad number. Texas fans can't be mad at that.
We got to answer Brandon Huey's question because he loves Madden Faramo. I do too. I think Madden, the linebacker out of San Juan Capistrano, is an absolute stud. He's coming in on June 21st through 23rd. No, Ohio State, Notre Dame, USC, they're all in it. I think the guy's a big-time player, man. I mean, when he hits you, the play's over. You love that at linebacker. He's also, to me, a bigger frame version of Leonga Lafau. He's more of a hitter, I think, on contact, a little more contact power. But what I mean by that is he's such a flow guy. He flows so well. He's so instinctive in the position. But then when it's time to open up and run, that dude can really close. And when he strikes you, I mean, you feel it. And anybody that played with a cast and was still out there dominating physically, you love at that position. So he passes. He checks a lot of boxes. Big-time linebacker, him and Mattia Tagoai, the USC commitment. I think both those guys are tremendous linebackers out of California coming in. And I think Texas has the ability to have a special, not good, special linebacker class. I know wide receivers getting all the love and defensive line because of the need and offensive line because it's going to be a 5 or 6 man class. But you have Elijah Barnes, one of the best in the country, committed. I think Texas leads for Riley Pettijohn, one of the best in the country. If you add one of those California linebackers and that's a 3-man linebacker class, I mean, strike up the band there. I mean, that would be a hell of a linebacker class.
Okay, let's take this. Oh, well, first we have a super chat here. Excuse me, Manchester Red 97. Thank you, sir, for the super chat. He says, Lowe, Shanklin, or Marco J if UT lands a Rogbo.
So if Texas has Lance Jackson, who could well be a 5-star, he's already committed, and they land Smith or Rogbo, who I hope they do. I think he's a tremendous edge pass rush prospect. I think it's Hayden Lowe. Somebody on the West Coast I really trust in this business, in the coaching world, said that guy could be a first-round pick one day, and he could be better than Kayvon Thibodeau. And I was kind of like, whoa, okay. Thibodeau was the number 1 ranked player in the country. He said one day. He meant that's where this kid could go. So I go with Hayden Lowe based on what I've seen and based on an opinion I really trust on the West Coast.
All right, Jerry, before we move on here, are you ready to tell folks out there about Texas electricity ratings?
Always ready to tell people about Texas electricity ratings. Hey, guys, for anyone shopping for electricity in the deregulated areas of Texas, TexasElectricityRatings.com is the best place to find a great electricity plan for your household. For starters, it filters out the dangerous and gimmicky plans from providers that are all hat and no cattle when it comes to your monthly bill. You can shop by rate, but also by an average bill feature that actually takes into account seasonal usage to give you a real number and not some placeholder. So if you're looking for a new electricity plan, check out TexasElectricityRatings.com/OTF for the very best options available. And Texas Electricity says, hook 'em.
Right. And we got time for a few more questions here, Jerry. So let's start with this one from Jason Hernandez. He says, with Texas and Oklahoma and the SEC, do you think that's made Arkansas a bottom-tier football team now since they can't recruit as they once did?
Great question. I think it's always been tough for them. Just recruiting in DFW. Sorry, Jerry Jones, if you're awake and listening to this. But I think it's been tougher since they went to the SEC to recruit in DFW. I know some people may disagree. I just think that's what it is. But now with Texas and Oklahoma moving to the SEC, I mean, Arkansas is an extremely difficult college football job to me. And it doesn't mean they can't win if Texas goes in there and plays bad. I mean, but I don't think Arkansas is going to be that level this year, or they were a few years ago where they gave Alabama all they wanted a couple times maybe and some other people. But it's a tough recruiting job. Where's your recruiting geography? If you're Arkansas, that's the tough thing is, if you're going to recruit in North Louisiana, now Texas in the SEC and they're going to recruit on I-20 as well, right? Where are you going to go? You're going to go to St. Louis, you're going to go to Kansas City. Oklahoma's strong there. Missouri's winning games now with Eli Drinkwitz, and now Missouri's going to have to keep Eli Drinkwitz. But it's a tough recruiting geography for Arkansas. Probably the toughest of any school in the SEC when it gets down to it, because you don't have that many in-state guys that you evaluate and say, absolute can help us win in the SEC. Then where do you fall in the portal pecking order, right? So it's a very difficult football job right now. But obviously for Arkansas fans, they're going to be hostile when Texas comes to town. But beyond that, they're over there hugging John Calipari right now.
All right. And then let's take this next question here from Odin Horns. He says, is Nye Black a step down from JT Sanders at tight end? What do you think?
I think he's a step down in one way. JT Sanders was very comfortable in the scheme, in the offense, with all the calls, everything about being a Texas tight end. He was year 3 last year. That has huge advantages because I do think it's a tough scheme for wide receivers and tight ends. A lot to ask of a tight end blocking in that scheme as well. So I think from that regard, yes. I think contested catches in the intermediate game, I think JT Sanders is a stud at it. So here's where I think Nye Black's better. I think he's a faster athlete. I think he's going to scare D coordinators maybe more in a different way because they know he's a 4-5 guy. at 230 pounds. So I think Niblack has more big play potential. If that may sound crazy to say based on watching JT run around against Alabama some, but I think Niblack has some strengths over Sanders. I think he's a stronger guy. I think he's going to throw up more than 8 bench press reps at 225 next year. I think he's a stronger athlete and a faster athlete and a more explosive athlete than JT Sanders is. The big question for Niblack is, how soon is that going to translate from knowing scheme and just going out and freely playing in that scheme? If there's something that may be different, maybe Niblack's a lot better as the season moves along than he is early in the season. Same could be said for him, Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden coming in the new scheme, because it's more difficult to pick up. Last year, Texas had one guy they added, A.D. Mitchell. This year, they have multiple guys they've added into a complex offensive scheme. So how quickly all those guys pick it up and freely play on Saturdays is going to be big for Texas, especially in week 2 offensively. But I think Niblack's going. I will not be surprised if Niblack's not a higher drafted player than JT Sanders.
And then we have a super chat here, Jerry from Jay Lee. Thank you, Jay Lee. He says, every year under Sark, we end up with highly ranked kids who weren't on the radar until fall. Any early predictions for highly ranked kids to keep an eye on?
One of those kids happened already. And actually, I think 2 of those kids have happened already. Aiden Anding at Ruston, the corner. And I keep bringing this up because he did it in the camp season. He went to the Under Armour camp in Dallas and put up tremendous testing times and looked really good in one-on-ones and all the video from those that goes out to college coaches. He was a basketball guy, tremendous shooter. I think he's made over 200 threes in the last 2 years at high school basketball up there. He's like an all-region basketball player. I mean, legitimate small college basketball player that transitioned back to some football last year, and he kind of exploded on the scene in the spring. So he got out ahead of it. I think Devin Coleman did the same thing because he was a defensive lineman that listened to Marcus Hutchins and played some offensive line, a lot of offensive line last year for Cedar Hill. And once that film got out, the offers started pouring in on the offensive line as a guard, maybe even center at the next level. So I think 2 of those guys have really already popped up for Texas in this class. And we'll see what happens. I think a lot of the guys have been on the radar now. I think there's less and less of those guys. I think more what you could see late for Texas in this class is somebody committed elsewhere that they already thought was really good, then maybe some things open up, whether that's coaching change, coaching carousel, what have you.
And then UT Boy with the super chat says, is that thumbnail Jonte? I haven't seen our thumbnail for today's show. I'll have to go back and look.
This one's not. Yeah, but UT Boy.
Bad joke.
You want me to paint it? All right.
Terrible joke.
I know.
Oh, man. I'll get back to you on that one.
Rob McCarty asked this. Any early notes on Booby Feaster 2027 wide receiver? He'll be on campus in June. Really talented kid. I hate to. I'm not saying anything negative about Jonte, UT Boy, but some people up there think he may even be better. He's got to develop though to get there. But Booby Feaster, very talented 2027 wide receiver, and I think Texas will have him on campus multiple times. Already has.
All right, Jerry, we got time for just 1 or 2 more questions because I got to go tie down the basketball goal before the wind knocks it over here in a second. About to get hit from a bad storm. Nate Russ, best chance for a national championship, 24 or 25?
Man, that's a tough one because the portal just changes everything, right? I think if Texas wins at Michigan, if they go up there and win at Michigan, that means they handled the line of scrimmage against a physical, defending national champion who's not the same team, but defensively is going to be really damn good with a bunch of NFL players at multiple positions on that defense. If Texas goes up there and wins that game physically, because they're going to have to, Michigan's going to make it that type of game, then Texas has a shot next year. I think they're going to be a faster team than they were last year, 1 through 85 roster. And I've said it before. I know people look at me like I'm nuts because of Worthy and A.D. Mitchell, but nobody thought A.D. Mitchell was 4.35 watching him play last year either. But when you add another top 5 recruiting class and you add what they did out of the portal, the twitchy guys on the edge, Trey Moore and Colin Simmons, to go with what you already have. all the speed at wide receiver, including the Ryan Wingos, right? I mean, just the talent Texas is bringing in and continues to bring in these recruiting classes through the portal. I think they're going to be faster. If they go answer the bell physically against Michigan and win that game, which is going to be very physical, then my odds for Texas go up, because Georgia is going to be extremely physical in Austin. And that Oklahoma in year 3 under Brent Venables is going to be better on defense. They're not going to be the 77th ranked defense this year like they were last year. So I think if Texas wins at Michigan, 24 looks promising, but then you go to A&M, which is going to be another tough game defensively. The schedule may actually be better in 25 for Texas, even though you go to Georgia and Florida, who will have a new coach.
And then our last question for today is the super chat from Slick Rick. Thank you, Slick Rick, for the big super chat. He says, will Dakorien Moore be an instant impact player if signed? Manning will have a lot of talent. Wingo, Moore, possibly French. Will Jonte transfer? Appreciate everything you do, Jerry. Here's some jerky money.
Look, DK Moore will absolutely be an impact player. He's just too athletic. He's going to graduate in December. He's done running track like most of these kids are now. He's too different athletically. I mean, he would come in and look the speed, the acceleration. I mean, Rod Babers talks about the acceleration, compared him to Joey Galloway. So because he's an early enrollee, he'll be an impact player. The same way we'll see Ryan Wingo make an impact at Texas this year. Because he was an early enrollee. So if Texas wins out for Dakorien Moore, I'd be very surprised if he's not an impact player. Texas. You also have kickoff return game there. He is an elite athlete at that position. Very elite.
For sure.
By the way, can I hit one more?
Yeah, go ahead.
What would be a grade for the D tackle class? Because I forgot that in our recruiting speed dating earlier. For me, that would be holding on to Brandon Brown, adding either Zion Williams or Kevin Wynn, and then winning out for either Josiah Sharma or Myron Charles. I think those 3 guys would make it an A class. If you can put together any of those 3 guys in a class, it makes it an A class. Then your 4th guy, developmental guy, somebody that maybe you stash and develop, a DJ Sanders, who is not an impact player. He would need time. If you go on a Chase Sims or Derry Norris out of Spruce Creek. But any combination of those guys I mentioned as 3, I give Texas an A. That's some big boy battles coming up.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, guys, well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football. We want to thank you all for tuning in. We got to thank our sponsor, Texas Electricity Ratings, along with Omaha Steaks. It wouldn't be possible without them, and it wouldn't be possible without you guys. We went over 48,000 subscribers. That's crazy, Jerry. About to hit that 50 mark before too long. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the super chats, the great questions. Be sure to head on over to ontexasfootball.com for more discussion. Jerry, you always bringing the goods over there. What you got, Jerry?
Hey, if you missed the first 10 minutes, go back and watch Bobby Burton. He's at the SEC spring meeting. So he was here the first 10 minutes and kind of gave a report from talking to from Greg Sankey's press conference and talking to people at Sandestin there yesterday. He's back with the coaches are going to meet with the media today. He'll have more on that here on Texas Football and ontexasfootball.com. So if you missed Bobby this morning, he'll be back in the morning. He may just be here a little bit of each morning because of the way these meetings are set up Tuesday and Wednesday. But go back and watch what he had to say. Pretty interesting.
That's right. And then if you haven't already as well, hit that like and subscribe button. We would really, really appreciate it. Ring the bell so you're notified anytime we post a video or go live. That way you don't miss any breaking news or any content that we put out. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.